Vetu washte, chante washte, na page usapo, Tomie machiapiae, ma lakotakasto, ohiti kaoyate, tatonka oyate. Today, I come to you with a good heart. I come from brave people, the Buffalo Nation. I am Lakota, a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe located in central South Dakota in the United States. I grew up and currently live on a cattle ranch on the reservation. Why the hat? I do have education in finance and economics and professional experience in banking. I was a loan officer. And for the last several years, I've worked for Intertribal Agriculture Council. You've gotten to hear some of my colleagues speak. They're very good at communicating and amazing at what they do. And then there's me. I would rather be about 50 miles in the middle of nowhere horseback instead of here, or behind my desk working on the numbers behind our program. But I have recently been set with the task of promoting what regenerative agriculture economies look like in the Native American communities that we serve, or as we say back home, Indian country. Now quickly, regenerative agriculture is not something set by metrics like organic. It is the closest we can get to our indigenous traditional knowledge put into one word. It's working in tandem with your land, water, animals, and people. Now, in the United States, aside from owning a casino, agriculture is the largest percentage of tribally owned enterprises and individually owned businesses. And Intertribal Agriculture Council represents those 574 recognized tribes, 80,000 plus producers, and 78 million acres of land. Our goal is to support those tribes, those people in that land, and their agriculture endeavors. And we have that effort because the truth is there are still harsh economic disparities that exist in Indian country compared to the rest of America's society, derived directly from the policies imposed by the federal government that denied secure property rights, clearly defined jurisdictions, and effective government structures. That, along with the most significant obstacle facing producers, the current agriculture financing system, has resulted in an abundance of resource-rich, yet poverty-stricken communities that find themselves the perpetual victims of extraction and exploitation. Now, it's very hard business being a farmer rancher. We try to do that in Indian country, where every system is set up for you to fail. And this has been that way for generations, and it has resulted in an adverse effect on our land. Some land has been unused, mismanaged, and damaged. So you have people that are struggling on a land that has been hurt. And then I think about my job title, and I think I'm just gonna go sit back down and give up. But no, you don't give up. I'm gonna give you hope. I'm gonna explain a scenario where a producer is financed where it looks more like an investment in it. This young producer went to his local capital loan fund and said, give me 5 years. In those 5 years, I'll give you a small interest-only payment. And then after that, you can term it out and structure it like any other loan. Now, as a former banker, that would not fly. But this producer got approved, and due directly to how he was financed his very first year, he was able to retain a greater number of female breeding stock. And as you can tell, I'm gonna use cattle ranching for this explanation. So what can one more cow do? I'm gonna provide some calculations. Now I use very conservative percentages of production, so I can show you a realistic picture. Now, this cow will be a producing asset for up to 5 to 7 years. She'll be a direct result in a greater number of producing assets. In 5 years, that's about 15 more head. So imagine that one cow, and she's surrounded by her daughters and her granddaughters and her great-granddaughters. For a rancher, that's wealth. That's your net worth. And on the balance sheet, the liability didn't change with those interest-only payments, but equity was still gained because there was increase in assets. This starts to make a little sense, but these are income-producing assets. So now we can talk about the dollar figure. So each year, additional producing assets increases, resulting in a greater amount of commodities that are birthed, greater sale numbers, which has an incremental increase in profit. Fancy way of saying, when there's more cows to sell. And when there's unstable markets and barely break-even prices, a greater number of sales does have a positive impact on the net profit. So it's now 6 years later. And it's time to tackle the original liability that started this whole operation. But this operation has built up their net worth, and they have a positive trending cash flow. That producer was able to gain a few more gray hairs if he had to deal with cattle. But more importantly, he put himself in a position to more effectively repay that debt. That business is now set up that it might have a fighting chance to have long-term success. So think past debt and asset, and what other opportunities are in those 5 years when there's a little extra cash in his pocket? What other infrastructure could be built or updated? What other machinery equipment can be purchased? Or maybe savings, so they can weather the storms ahead, both figuratively and literally. Or maybe even simple as a retirement plan, something seldom done by farmers and ranchers and never in Indian country. Any one of these scenarios does have a multi-layer positive effect on the local, regional, and even global economy. But the producers in Indian country, the producers I'll be working with, have some other ideas in mind. We have producers that instead of profit, they would donate that extra beef to their community, to their elderly program, or maybe cover the cost of trying to get to the farm to school program so their beef can be at the local tribal schools. Because they want to support the effort of Indian country taking back their food sovereignty, taking back control where the food comes from. Now, food sovereignty has gained a lot of attention in the United States the last couple of years. Tribes have begun to realize that the most nutritious and abundant source of food can be grown and raised and harvested on their own land. Or there are producers that would instead use that profit to cover the costs of implementing conservation and holistic grazing and farming practices so they can see an increase in their soil health. They can get a better use of their land, or maybe start to reverse those damages I was talking about. Because they know that healthier soil means healthier livestock, healthier people, and a healthier planet. Now, you don't have to take my expertise on that. I don't know much about soil. But you can go look up that grazing livestock on the grasslands of the world can be one of the saviors in the room when you start talking about climate issues. Now, I explain this with a scenario using cows. It's just one area in the egg sector, but I could do similar arguments with every industry where another acre of land is acquired or developed, another square foot of greenhouse or infrastructure is built. I use this explanation to further the thought of finding innovative solutions to how egg finance works in Indian country, so that it's not another barrier, an obstacle for people to overcome. Now, Intertribal Agriculture Council has been advocating this for several years. But recently, it has been championed and put into practice by a very small loan fund called Aratini. Aratini is what's called a community development financing institution. In the United States, these institutions are developed to provide credit where there is underserved populations, and they have very specific goals. Aratini's goal is to provide credit to Native Americans in agriculture. They have taken a modeling very similar to what I just explained, and they've already had immense strides made in Indian country. Aratini is actually a Lakota word. It means when a community comes together in a joint effort. And I believe it is organizations like them that were built from the minds of the indigenous working farmers and ranchers, from the descendants of the original land stewards of Turtle Island, that should be the experts that Wells Fargo or Barclay go to when they want to start talking about their climate-smart ag financing initiative that they recently announced at COP26. Because I believe that if they look towards American Indian country, they'll find solutions that work the right way. Because if ag finance was structured differently, but in the right way, and then if it was invested in the right Indian cowboy, it could have a positive impact on that one operation, as from that scenario, it does sound like that business could be successful. And that has a positive impact on economy, a positive impact on community and people, and a positive impact on our land. And then maybe we can start to reverse the disparities that are facing my people. And we continue to regenerate and heal our land. Wopiya Tonka. I am very appreciative of you all for listening.